Episodes 21 and 22 of Ryusoulger created a lovely little emotional two-parter for us, giving a little bit of focus to Asuna, not a full 2 episodes worth for her necessarily, because there was kind of a lot going on, but I think overall this was a meatier two-parter, and honestly, between the two of the episodes themselves, they were fairly meaty on their own. So there's a few big points to tackle here, and first of all is really the plot structure with the Minosaur, who is sucking out life of creatures on the earth, or really just in the city, and using it to revive dead people and dead beings, which is a very interesting concept in general. I actually don't know if I've seen anything like that in Sentai at the very least. And it also doesn't necessarily further any of the Druidon goals, other than, I mean, there'll be a big Minosaur eventually, but even the return of Tankjo is sort of coincidental, it seems. It's hard to tell if the people who come back are summoned by anything, so it does seem to be just sort of incidental that happens. Of course, the big returns are Tankjo on the villain side and Master Pink on the hero side. And one of the weird things about this episode, and I will admit it kind of just didn't make sense to me, is that the Minosaur came from Master Pink and her desire to be able to come back to Earth and be alive again. I don't know how you make a Minosaur out of a dead person. There is an implication throughout the entire series that, souls are a tangible concept and, these spirits exist, but I don't know how you make a Minosaur out of it. Like, I don't know where Creon shot the goo. They don't really explain it, and they just kind of say, like, yeah, it's my Minosaur, and I just kind of went, what? I thought they might show it, but that's the one thing where I was like, I don't know if that actually makes sense. But setting that aside, the impact the episode had because of it, I think, was very strong, and it made me kind of not care that didn't necessarily make sense. Asuna and Master Pink's moments are great. The goodbye is obviously very heartfelt, but their little interactions before that have a lot of fun to them. Just the initial meeting and the hug and all that stuff. And the drama of Master Pink wanting to defeat her own Minosaur because there's guilt there. That was all really nice. And again, even though this isn't necessarily like full Asuna, because a lot of characters are doing a lot of things this episode, I do really feel like it gave her some really good, impactful stuff. And actually, that little line about how she was Master Pink's worst student is just a really nice little nugget of character info for us. And once again, I think this show does a really good job about making the show feel like it's about real people that exist. The Minosaur also kind of jumping in between dimensions. I don't know if it was like Land of the Dead necessarily, but that was a cool little gimmick. And also just visually, this episode had a lot of cool stuff. And part of that comes out of another big development, which was our 2 new Kishiryu, Shadow Raptor and Shine Raptor. Once again, confirming they are sentient. Shine Raptor actually gets to speak a little bit. And of course, they do combine into Cosmo Raptor, and we get to see different armor and mecha use. Now, some of the armor use was mostly in the mecha just to kind of accentuate the power of it, but very cool looking, just aesthetically. The armor looks great. Going to Ko and Kanalo, which, Red and 6th Rangers are kind of the 2 who are in line for power-ups, and I am a little bit at a point where it's like, hey, maybe we can start sharing the love a little bit. And I know there are scans that confirm that will happen, and in the next episode after this, 23, jumping ahead a little, they do talk about how, like, when the soul belongs to a living Kishiryu, they have to acknowledge you, and Ko and Kanalo have been the ones to do these things. I think if you could have given Asuna one of them, though, that would have been really nice and a nice little cherry on top for her character moment. I don't think it detracted on the whole. I don't think they're giving Ko especially any major character beats or artificial importance when they do this. When he got Shine Raptor, it was because he happened to be the one who got sucked in. It wasn't because Ko is magic for plot reasons, and it just had to be him. Like, they at least wrote in a scenario, and that's a little something. But honestly, they looked really cool. We didn't really get Shine Raptor as like armor or mecha armor by itself, but we got the Shadow Raptor black hole stuff, which is so cool, and the Cosmo finisher was also really cool. Just aesthetically really cool. And as much as it's this simple, like, yeah, the Druidon kidnapped them, they were in space, and that's kind of just, okay, I guess you just needed to insert them. Again, they're inserted in the middle of other cool plot stuff happening. If these episodes were just about getting those raptors, I think they'd be a lot more boring. But we had this really interesting Minosaur subplot going on, and we also had the big reveal of Seto, the man who has been wrapped up in his kind of turban and robe, who we learn is in fact a possessed Ui's dad. I still don't know his name, but he is possessed by this man. Seto occasionally manifests himself. It seems like he's not able to do it as willingly as he wants, because during that first conversation on the roof, he kind of just loses it to Ui's dad, who just wakes up and is just like, why am I sleeping on a roof dressed like this? And he does interpret it as naps, which I think is funny. I do also like that Ui is filled in on this very quickly. I would have been really dumb for them not to be like, you know, we have to hide this from Ui. There's no reason for that. But that's cool. He was, you know, a sleeping member of the Ryusoul tribe, awakened on an archaeological dig, seemingly, by Ui's dad. So that ties in also, you know, because part of me was going to be like, well, that's pretty random, but at least he's been studying this for so long. You know, is it coincidental that they met him because they met Ui? Yes, I can't deny that, but it's the kind of thing that happens a lot with Toku, where I'm enjoying so much of this that I don't care about the logical inconsistencies, and that's how I treat Toku a lot, is if enough of it's good, the things that would make me scratch my head don't matter. And on Ui's note, her mom coming back was another major resurrection, who, not necessarily on the hero side, I guess, but not necessarily someone who's going to be in the fighting. And that was really just to give a nice emotional beat to Ui. I think she is occasionally sidelined a little just to make a joke or two. But I like that in the two-parter where her dad is becoming plot important, they give her some big emotional beats on the side, and just the cooking lesson is a nice little miniature arc. I also like that her mom seemed aware that she was dead. Everyone kind of acknowledged it without blatantly being like, why are you alive? And when she fades away, her mom seems to understand what's happening, and Ui seemed to understand what was happening, and that, I think, was really nice. I would have been heartbroken if Ui didn't know what happened. She was still heartbroken. She was very sad, but I would have been upset if, it became this kind of thing where she was super upset. I think it was handled with a very delicate touch in the right way, and I'm very happy they were able to get that across. Jumping back to the resurrection and the villain side, Tank Joe coming back, on one hand, I actually enjoyed Tank Joe more here than at the beginning of the show. I think there was a little more personality to him. I can't really describe what it was, I just found him a little more charismatic. I still don't quite understand why Creon likes Tank Joe the most. I assume it's just that's who he's always worked with. I mean, he also does know who the other Druidon members are when they've debuted, but that always kind of threw me off. I did like Tank Joe's first thing coming back was asking about his points. The fact that was something between the two of them is nice. He still did the you don't get to laugh thing, and Creon kind of took it in stride, I missed that. And, Creon just bawling when he died again. I really like Creon. I am excited that Creon will probably be in the entire show. I also really like the moment with Weisel where he offers the handkerchief and has a tender moment where he's like, you're allowed to cry this time. And that, for a villain, that was nice. And then, of course, they make it kind of a joke where he gets it super messy, and it's just you keep that. It's fine. I'll get another. But yeah, a really good mix of kind of everything the show does, which is plot mixed with character development, mixed with toy introduction, like everything Sentai should do when it's good, all in a nice little two-parter wrapped up very well. Again, a little bit of logical inconsistency with how the world works, but so much of it was really enjoyable and good that I didn't really mind it. And going forward, I think they've set us up for some more plot stuff because Seto is now in this position to reveal key information as needed. Hopefully they use him well. You know, that's a character you can risk kind of making the person who solves the problems with his convenient, you know, Deus Ex Machina knowledge. And, you know, in a show where they do kind of every Ryusoul is a Deus Ex Machina sometimes, they do have to worry about that in my eyes, but I trust them at this point. I think they'll handle it pretty well, as they've been handling things well. It is interesting that they aren't really tackling more of the Gaisorg stuff from last time necessarily. You know, we've had the discussion now about how Gaisorg defeated Bamba and Toa's master, supposedly, and that, you know, brings up the possibility that, like, that could be their master in the armor. That's very possible, but it is interesting that we didn't immediately get into that, and that was just kind of a seed to sow. And again, he's an aloof entity, so him not immediately being this wasn't necessarily bad. I do hope that he'll become a little more active sooner than later, but that could just be a pacing thing that they have a plan for, and again, as of now, I'm trusting them. They've yet to really let me down. And really with that, again, another really good time with a full two-part arc this time. You know, after a few one-off episodes that I thought were very good on their own, we have two good episodes that are also a good two-parter. I don't think they rely on each other too heavily. I think they were enjoyable a week apart each. After this, I've seen it, I'll say now, episode 23 is a clip show episode. There's a little more to it than that, but nothing too crazy. It has to happen in these shows. It just always does. But again, going forward, having a good time with this show. Really, I am constantly curious to know what they've got in store when it's time for things to get heavy. I really hope they've got something cool and some, like, real dramatic stuff for us. And when we get there, I'm real excited, but I don't mind that we're not there yet. I think the show is doing enough things right that I'm still not really itching for them to move much faster. And if they can maintain that up to the finale, I think I will be pretty satisfied. And with that, I hope you have been satisfied with the show as well. If not, you know, totally cool. I'd love to hear from anyone if you've been really liking the show, if you really haven't been liking the show, if you've got some mixed opinions, because sometimes that's just the way it is. But until then, I will be back to talk about episode 23 next. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you again soon.